Hello everyone and welcome back to the Synergy Sanctum. My name is Justin. Thank you so much for stopping by. Here at the Synergy Sanctum, we specialize in all things related to Magic the Gathering with a specific focus on deck building. So I aim to show you very quick deck techs that'll show you all of the cards in the deck and how they work together to ultimately achieve the goals of that deck. If you're not already, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. And we also have a sister channel now, so head on over to Commander Coliseum and check out their content as well. And for today's deck tech, we have another Halloween-themed one with a Goblin this time. Slobad Iron Goblin. So Slobad is very focused on casting big artifact spells, sacking those artifacts to get even more mana equal to their mana value, and then spending that mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. So a ton of synergy here with a ton of artifacts, and Slobad is just sitting there making a bunch of machines and getting crazy value off of them. Mono red also for Halloween here. So Slobad specifically says you can sack an artifact. You get to add an amount of red equal to that sacked artifact's mana value, and then you can spend that mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. So a little goblin here that's just churning away in a volcano, I imagine. Current TCG market value, pretty affordable, under $100, $82 to $100. And then our land count is 34, with 20 of those being mountains and 14 of those being non-basics. So, getting into it today, we don't have, to me, any way of infinite combo potential, but there is some combo potential here. So if you turn Slobad into an artifact with either Liquid Metal Torque or Liquid Metal Coating, then something like Draw Scorpion, every time you're sacking one of these big artifacts, is letting you untap Slobad. So really broken here. Just some kind of additional combos to get additional value off of Slobad. He's already pretty valuable, making as much mana as he's going to make. So we're going to get into the big artifacts that exist in the deck now. So we are running a Wormcoil Engine, which is 6 mana, so that'll make you 6 red. And when it dies, it makes little 3/3 babies, one with Lifelink, one with Death Touch. We're running a Sojourner's Companion. It's a 7 mana artifact, but it has affinity. And then it also has artifact land cycling, and that's it. Again, it's only here because it's going to make 7 red mana. Triplicate Titan, similar to Wormcoil Engine, is making 3 golem creatures when it dies, so you can cast this and then sack it and get additional artifacts left over. Bygone Colossus is a 9 mana value, but you can warp it in for 3, so you can warp this in early game, sack it with Slobad, and immediately get 9 red. So broken. Suchi Cave Guard has Ward 4, and when it dies, you get to add 8 mana. So this one doubles up. You're going to get the 8 colorless and the 8 red from Slobad. Mirror Enforcer is just another affinity for artifacts, but it's a 7 drop, so 7 red. Phyrexian Triniform is making a bunch of leftovers. When it dies, it's 9 red. Ancient Stone Idol would get you 10 red when you sack it, and he makes a 6/12 artifact construct creature with trample. Metalwork Colossus is 11 red mana if you sack it, and he costs X less, where X is the total mana value of non-creature artifacts you control, and you could also sack 2 artifacts to put it back in your hand, so really good consistent recursion here. And then Furnace Hellkite costs 7 mana to cast, but he has affinity for artifacts, so ideally he's only costing 2 red. And then even more big artifacts in the deck. So we're running a Frogmere Enforcer, which has Infinity. It's 7 colorless to cast, but it would make you 7 red. Ingenuity Engine's really good because it has Cascade, so you're going to get double cast off of this. And then it will let you sack an artifact to return one that you have on the field to its owner's hand. And then Skitterbeam Battalion is a 9 drop. But when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you get to create 2 tokens that are copies of it. Oh my gosh, so disgusting. And then additional value in the deck, so the Mycosith Gardens can become a copy of a non-token artifact you control with the mana value. So on a land, you can have a way to get additional value with Slobad, sacking the land. Sanctum of Ugin says that when you cast a colorless spell that's 7 or greater, you can sack it and go find another one. So good. Tanuk Steadfast Second. Oh man, Tanuk, Sneak Attack, and Arms Race are all so broken in this deck because you don't want to be burning your mana mana on these big casts, because then it's just kind of like pointless at that point. You're just like casting the big thing and then sacking it to get your mana back. But when you have things like Tanook's warp ability or sneak attack for a red or arms race for 4, you get to play all of these things for way cheaper, and you don't have to like burn the ability because it's activated, so you can keep doing it, and then you can just like flood the board with your hand or just do even more crazy stuff here and do it for cheaper with each of these. So really, really broken in this deck. Slagstone Refinery says that whenever another non-token artifact you control is put into the graveyard, you get to create a tapped Power Stone token, so it's making you rocks every time you lose one. Sculpting Steel copies 1. Mirrorworks is making copies if you pay 2. Pia's Revolution is forcing people to decide if they're going to give it back to you when it sacks or take damage. Inventor's Fair is letting you tutor 1, and then Chisgoria Forge Tyrant has affinity for artifacts itself, and then when it attacks, you can exile the top 5 cards, and you can cast an artifact spell from it, and it has affinity, so you could potentially just be getting free artifacts off of this. And then Sahili's Directive, you could be dumping all of the mana you're making off of Slobad into this and getting a ton of artifacts off of the top of your deck and putting them into play. Ugh, just so broken here. And then we got a lot of recursion in the deck because we're going to be playing a lot of cards and then sacking these big artifacts. So every single one of these cards can bring the artifacts back. So Workshop Assistant, when it dies, you can bring one back from your graveyard to your hand. Sequester's Stash requires you to sack the land, but then you get to put the top 5 cards into your graveyard and bring any artifact back from the graveyard to the top. Transfer Treasure wants you to swap them. Same with Scrap Welder. You can sack an artifact with mana value X to return one that's X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Scrap Trawler is letting you do it every time one dies. Mirror Retriever and Junk Diver care when they die, you get to return one. And then Scrap Mastery is kind of like a, what is it, Living Death, I believe, where you get to exile all the artifacts from your graveyard, sack all the ones you have, and then put all the exile ones back on the battlefield. Feldon's letting you do it for 3 every turn, bringing one back. Duretti, his minus ability, lets you sack one to bring one back. And then Buried Ruin, if you sack it, you could put one from your graveyard to your hand. And then there's additional ways of sacking the artifacts, so we're not just relying on Slobad for this. So we've got Memorial Vault. It lets you sack and then get some pseudo draw, and you can play those cards for the turn. Bosch Iron Golem lets you do damage based off of the mana value of that sacked artifact to any target. And then Audacious Reshaper says you can sack one to reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an artifact. You get to put that on the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of the library, and it deals damage to you equal to the number of cards that were revealed. But because we're running so many artifacts, hopefully this is minimal. And then we've got lots of draw on the deck, so we're running War Room because it'll just be 3 mana for 1 life to draw. Ichor Wellspeen draws you a card when it enters or leaves. Endless Atlas lets you draw as long as you have 3 mountains. And then Rune Grinder, when it dies, each player can wheel and draw 7 cards. It also has Mountain Cycling for early game, but this is another great one to sack off a Slowback because there's additional value. Mystic Forge lets you play artifacts from the top of your library. Filigree Familiar and Circuit Mender are pretty good early game because they gain you life, and then when you sack them, you draw, and you'd still get the 3 mana back for each of them from Slowbad. Combustible Gear Hulk forces people to choose whether they're going to let you draw or take damage, and then Collector's Vault is letting you draw and discard and create a treasure every turn. And then even more draw on the deck. Here's all of the red spells that let us draw or tutor. So Faithless Looting's getting you 2. Unexpected Windfall and Big Score are getting you 2 and 2 treasures. Tormenting Voice and Thrill of Possibility, as well as Demand Answers, are getting you 2. And then Reckless Handling is letting you tutor for an artifact. And as long as you discard a card at random, and if it happens to be an artifact, it does 2 damage to each opponent. But otherwise, you can get the specific one you want out of the deck. And then with removal, we're running Spine of Ishal, which is so good in this deck. So you're going to cast it and destroy a permanent. Slowbad's going to sack it and get you 7 red. And this can go, potentially infinite. So I guess there is an infinite combo in the deck. If Slowbad's an artifact, you got Draw Scorpion out. You can just blow up the entire board with Spine of Ishal and keep replaying it every single time you sack it. So basically, you would sack this with Slowbad. You get the 7 red. It would go to the graveyard. But because it's an artifact, Draw Scorpion would untap Slowbad, and then you can recast Spine of Ishal with the 7 mana you spent, and then basically immediately keep doing this infinitely to blow up the entire board. Ugh, so good. Duplicant to exile a creature, Meteor Golem to blow up a non-land permanent, got a board wipe with Blasphemous Act, and then Guff rewrites history, and Chaos Warp is our targeted removal, which also you could target your own stuff to then go ahead and get a different permanent out. And then lots of mana in the deck. We're running a couple of rocks here, the bigger ones with Thran Dynamo and Gilded Lotus making 3 mana. Solemn is getting you a land when it enters. Mycosith Wellspring off of entering or leaving, you get to go get a land. And then Soul Rain is another rock. Semblance, Anvil, and Cloud Key are the 2 discounts for the artifacts in the deck. And with that, our show has come to an end. Thank you so much for watching our video, and if you enjoyed that video, feel free to share it out with any friends who might find value in it as well. Thank you so much for stopping by. We hope to see you again soon. Have a good one.